December 1st, 2017, now a significant date in American history. It's the worst legal day the Trump presidency has had so far, and because the Russia probe now has a cooperating witness close to the president, could be the first of more rough days. Tonight, we have covered what Mike Flynn admitted and how Bob Mueller can use it, and who else has criminal exposure. But now we turn to a special legal report on what this story is actually at its root fundamentally about. Not just the laws allegedly broken along the way, but the conduct, the statecraft, the actual effort, now today increasingly exposed, by Trump officials to do something that still sounds reckless for security and actually counterproductive politically. Their effort to appease Russia at the very moment the U.S. was punishing it for its election meddling. So let's walk through it. It was December 2016 when the news broke that the U.S. was sanctioning Russia for election meddling.
Breaking news at this hour, new U.S. action against Russia over allegations of hacking. The Obama administration takes broad action to expel nearly 36 Russian diplomats from the United States and enact sanctions on some of the senior-most members of Russian intelligence.
That was the news, big news. And it was that very same day, December 29, 2016, that Mike Flynn sprang into action. We can report tonight that he was talking to a senior Trump official about how to appease the Kremlin. And then Flynn got on the phone with the Russian ambassador to discuss undercutting the sanctions, asking not to escalate the situation. Flynn admits to that today. So as the U.S. government sanctions Russia, Flynn pleading for Putin to lay low, and he did. And President-elect Trump then praises Putin in a tweet which was viewed as bizarre at the time. But there was no public evidence showing why Trump aides were so eager to undercut people and jobs they were going to take over by January 20th. On January 12th, though, the Washington Post then reported that Flynn had phoned Ambassador Sergei Kislyak several times and that Trump aides denied the sanctions were discussed on those calls. Now, if that was just an innocent sanctions discussion, why deny it? Why dispatch the most senior officials to insist that Flynn did not plot with the Russian ambassador to undercut sanctions?
What I can confirm, having spoken to him about it, is that those conversations that happened to occur around the time that the United States took action to expel diplomats had nothing whatsoever to do with those sanctions.
Nothing whatsoever. That was not true. Mike Flynn said so today. Was Pence lying? Well, Mike Flynn knows, and today he says he'll be cooperating fully. The reason he's cooperating is that just 4 days into the Trump administration, the FBI asked about the sanctions, and Flynn falsely stated he didn't ask the Russians about the sanctions. Now let's pause. It would be reasonable at this point to wonder, if Flynn lied about this then, why believe him now? But there's an answer. And it's that Mueller has evidence about what really happened, including intel revealing what was discussed. Mueller's not alone either. It was the acting attorney general, Sally Yates, who also had the evidence showing that they did discuss sanctions, which alarmed her so much, she marched over to the White House warning Flynn lied and the Russians knew it.
That the Russians also knew about what General Flynn had done, and the Russians also knew that General Flynn had misled the vice president and others. And that created a compromise situation, a situation where the national security advisor essentially could be blackmailed by the Russians.
That's bad. But as the old honey badger saying goes, White House don't care. They kept Flynn on the job, and instead of pressing Flynn on what he did, Trump pressed the FBI for scrutinizing Flynn. Just think about that. The crime that Flynn confessed to today is the impetus for Donald Trump asking the FBI to leave Flynn alone. It was the next day, after Yates warned the White House, that Trump suddenly invites the FBI director to dinner asking for a loyalty pledge.
And that the dinner was an effort to build a relationship, in fact, he asked specifically, of loyalty in the context of asking me to stay.
You're not supposed to ask the FBI for personal loyalty, and it looks worse if you ask right after learning your top aide is compromised. Then when Trump was pressed about these very public accounts of Flynn's sanctioned lies, which had been on TV for roughly like a week, he goes on Air Force One and tells reporters he hadn't seen the story.
What do you make of reports that General Flynn had conversations about it. I haven't seen it.
Haven't seen it, don't know about it. 3 days later, Flynn was out.
This morning, National Security Advisor Michael Flynn has resigned his post.
Flynn gone but not forgotten, because then Trump started pressing Jim Comey to drop any Russia inquiry on Flynn.
Flynn had been forced to resign the day before. On the 14th, the president makes specific reference to that. And so that's why I understood him to be saying that what he wanted me to do was drop any investigation connected to Flynn's account of his conversations with the Russians.
At the time, that was also secret, so we only know about it because Trump later fired Jim Comey over Russia, and then we heard that testimony there. In public, Trump was spinning this defense in February.
Mike Flynn is a fine person, and I asked for his resignation. When I looked at the information, I said, I don't think he did anything wrong. If anything, he did something right. You know, he was just doing his job. The thing is, he didn't tell our vice president properly.
It was all about the vice president. Then Trump went on and made a more public, specific denial, which Mueller's now probing. Trump saying he did not direct Flynn to make those Russia sanctions calls.
Did you direct Mike Flynn to discuss sanctions with the Russian ambassador
No, I didn't.
prior to your inauguration?
No, I didn't.
And would you have fired him if the information hadn't leaked out?
No, I fired him because of what he said to Mike Pence. Very simple.
But today's Mueller docs basically say Flynn did get direction from senior Trump officials at Mar-a-Lago in December. Translation? People with the president, and more than one of them. Now, those people aren't technically named in the document, but we have begun reporting on some of them, and Flynn has pledged to tell Mueller all the names. And then those people will be interviewed. The fact that Flynn knew so much looks relevant to Trump's ongoing interest in Flynn. He was still defending him in May.
This man has served for many years. He's a general. He's, in my opinion, a very good person.
And that may be true. Mike Flynn is now flipped, which means it's Mueller and Trump's critics that are going to be invoking his veracity and his service as a witness. And Trump will have to decide if he agrees with all of this praise he publicly gave his once loyal aide. But the most ominous part of Flynn's criminal statement today is this, a piece of pretty standard language at the top. Quote, these facts do not constitute all of the facts known to the parties about this crime. Think about that. Bob Mueller doesn't need to tip his hand on all the other facts, and the law doesn't usually work that way. But there's a story in these documents, and it shows an effort on the part of the Trump campaign and the early Trump administration to appease Russia. It suggests this was an urgent priority, with top aides involved, with a flurry of calls and coordination before they even took office. So when you move beyond what happened today with the lie and the false statement, you have to say why. Does this look like policy as usual, or were there other interests at play? Was there something desired, or was there something owed? Now, Flynn had taken money from Russian interests and huddled with Vladimir Putin, and Trump had advocated warmer Russia relations.
I believe an easing of tensions and improved relations with Russia from a position of strength only is possible, absolutely possible. Some say the Russians won't be reasonable. I intend to find out.
And now apply what we've learned, what Mike Flynn admitted today, what is not in dispute in America tonight, to Donald Trump's infamous request during the campaign to Russia to help him steal Hillary Clinton's email.
Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing.
Bob Mueller has a lot on Flynn right now, and Flynn says he's got info on other people. And the question here is what's not in today's documents? What are those other facts? That's a question of whether anything between Donald Trump and Russia in 2016 could have been driving this now documented flurry of outreach to Russia, which now involves at least one crime on the record and admitted, lying, and potential other crimes about Mike Flynn being a foreign agent, and the clear suggestion in a cooperation agreement that, yes, there are more crimes yet to be charged.